I'm very excited about this panel because we've got three amazing people ready. They are just waiting backstage. So I will go ahead and introduce them one by one and invite them to come onto the stage and say hello. So Emma Greenwood, she is the Youth MP for Bury and part of the Youth Strike for Climate Manchester team. I met Emma up in Manchester actually when I went up there to do our sustainable Christmas market last year, which was fantastic. And I was absolutely amazed and blown away by her resilience, her intuition, her commitment to the cause, and just the way that she was able to communicate how she feels and also speak on behalf of a lot of other young people. So she'll be joining us in just a second. And we also have, there, Emma. Hey, we got there.
I'm here. Yeah, there you go.
Excellent. Did I do you justice in your bio, do you think?
Yes, I think you did it right.
Perfect. Well, welcome back. It's lovely to see you again. Next, we have Jessica Morris. So Jess grew up in Shropshire, which is a long way from the ocean, but spent as much time as she could around in swimming under, and she's basically been involved with Surfers Against Sewage since the age of 14. So the ocean is, I guess, part of her sense of identity, I suppose you could say. Indeed, she moved down to Cornwall to study, and SAS has been a really important part of her life ever since that point. And now she has moved back to London, and she's focusing her work around kind of bringing the sustainability conversation away from where it might seem the most obvious, aka at the ocean, kind of bringing those into communities and trying to remind everyone, I guess it's important more than ever now to protect the things that we love, even if we're far away from them. So if Jess wants to join us on stage, she would be welcome. And the final person we're going to introduce to you this evening is Lizzie Carr. I have had the pleasure of interviewing Lizzie once before, and yeah, like Emma, I just absolutely love their story and think it's just a privilege to be able to share it with you all again. So Lizzie is a triple world record holder, an activist, an adventurer, an acclaimed author. And after a cancer diagnosis at 26, Lizzie took up paddleboarding to aid her recovery. And in 2015, she quit her job, dedicating her time to campaigning. And in the space of those 4 years, she just completed 3 world firsts on a paddleboard, catapulting her one-woman crusade against plastic pollution to a globally recognized movement with thousands of volunteers. So this is Plastic Patrol, the initiative that she started up. And indeed, she's taken this groundswell of energy to Downing Street, presenting #1 with her 3-year study into plastic pollution, and was named top 10 female activist to follow on Instagram. She also launched her film last year, which we screened at the Christmas market, which some of you might remember if you came along, about her film Down the Hudson, because she actually paddleboarded down the Hudson. So that's pretty amazing, and what a lineup. And I'm so thrilled again that technology allows us all to be here so last minute, and just it opens up a whole new world of communication, which is fantastic. So Lizzie's just joining us on stage. We'll give her a minute to come along and then we'll get started. But Emma, how have you found the event so far? Have you had a chance to look around?
I have. I've been doing lots of looking at the online shops, which have been really, really interesting. Lots of kind of good sustainable options straight from your home. So it's perfectly sorted for me.
Amazing. Okay, cool. It's interesting in a time like now when maybe funds aren't coming in so much, but there's so many good things that I want to spend my money on. So it's good they have all these discounts and things and make it very easy for us. Yeah. So what else has been new for you? Obviously, your schooling has taken, I guess, a bit of a right turn. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I was in my final year at high school, so my GCSEs, and they were cancelled. So I've basically been left with 6 months of time, which is completely free for me to do whatever I want. So luckily I've managed to kind of utilise it and put it into my environmental activism and kind of doing the stuff that I never had time to do before. So I'm enjoying it.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, I have so many questions about that, but probably for another time. Jessica, we got you.
Sorry, my internet is really not very good. I really apologize in advance for me cutting out. I'm really sorry.
Don't worry. Hop in as well, like we've been saying, it's a new platform for all of us to explore. And it's not, Lizzie is here, yes.
Yeah, I had a bit of trouble, a little slight technical glitch, but we're all good now.
I know, there's like that heart-stopping moment where you're like, where is the button gone? There's nothing a button. Well, welcome, ladies. It's so lovely to have you here with us. And the pleasure is really all mine. And I'm so excited to have the opportunity to speak. And if anybody from the community that's watching has any questions along the way, please do just drop them in the chat box, because we will have an opportunity at the end to ask your questions. So if you are keen to learn a little bit more, then please go ahead and do that. So, activism at home. I guess to start, I wanted to share, I suppose in my own experience, I find the word activism to be quite loaded, in the sense that for some people it might mean something quite severe and aggressive, and for others it could be something a bit more passive and quiet. So I'd love to kind of get a sense of, for the room, for people who might not be familiar with your work, what kind of activist are you? Like, what sort of scale do you sit on? And yeah, I don't know. Jessica, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I do agree with you. I think it can be a very loaded term that you can use, but I think especially with Surfers Against Sewage, we are a very community based, we're very motivational, we try and make it accessible to everybody. We try and create movements and platforms and campaigns that you can get involved with to whatever extent fits with you and whatever you want to give or whatever. So it kind of works around families and individuals, and if you want to be a bit more kind of into it, and not, I don't know about aggressive really is a way that sort of, but a bit more kind of involved with it, then you can be more than welcome to get as fully involved as you wish. So from my point of view, I quite like kind of making my own kind of activism and not really relying on somebody else's. That's what I like doing anyway. So
I like that. It's very, very freeing. I feel instantly
it's really great.
When there the aggression and everything, and you're like, that's not even a thing. Emma, what about you?
Again, I think like activism is definitely a spectrum, and it's all about the individual and how they choose to do it. So I'm part of the UK Student Climate Network, which is all built up of people under the age of, say, 25. So we never do actions that are going to put young people at risk with the police. So we'll do things like strikes and marches, but we'll always try and work with the police to make sure that everyone's safe. But yeah, overall, it's a lot of kind of we do a lot of work with politicians and kind of local councils and things. So we're kind of in the middle, I'd say, of like, we'll try and push the barrier a bit, but we won't try and kind of lose them in that sense.
I like that. And Lizzie, what about you?
I think it's really interesting because all of us have talked about how activism as a word can sometimes be quite aggressive, and yet each one of us sits in a very different space to that really aggressive sort of campaigning. I would say that the work I do in Plastic Patrol is very, very much about action. We're doers. We don't just talk about the problem. I mean, it's good to talk about the problem and discussions are important, but it's like, how can we actually do something to make a difference here? And also, as Emma just talked about, collaboration, like we're part of a system and the system is fundamentally flawed, and our actions alone can't change that. It has to be part of something bigger. So the work that we're doing, sort of the evidence that we're building through our cleanups, through the use of the technology that we use on our cleanups, means that we're able to have those kind of conversations and unlock the problems that need to be addressed. So yeah, I think it's really interesting because activism, I think I've always found it a bit of an uncomfortable word for the work that I do. Like, I'm an activist, but I see myself more as a campaigner, because I think that word over time, its kind of meaning has got lost a little bit. Everyone's an activist.
Or no one is,
yeah.
You know, that's kind of the same thing, really. It's a term which has so many different definitions, and it's a really great place to start to just identify, okay, well, what is the language barrier to understanding what it really means. And this might be a bit odd, but it just came to me as you were talking. It's more about impactivism rather than like activism.
There we go.
You heard it here first, folks. Hashtag impactivism. But yes, and I love the idea of kind of, you know, bringing science and communities and young people. You're all exploring lots of different areas. So again, if anyone has any specific questions for these lovely ladies, then please do pop it in the chat box. So given we kind of know a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis, or the area that you work in, how would you say the lockdown experience has changed or morphed what you're able to do? And do you think that's had a positive or negative impact on your impact, if that makes sense?
I'll go.
Yeah,
okay.
You go.
I'll go. Yeah, we've it's been very interesting actually for us. I mean, I'm a rep obviously based in a city which is slightly different to a lot of other reps who are coastal or even small towns. So having to almost lock in our campaigns is very strange, but it's been really positive. I think it's made us become a lot more resourceful of our communications, and a lot more resourceful of things like social media, something that's always kind of helped us but not really been the main focus of our campaigns. We are very much like forward facing, we're face to face, we're, you know, out there doing our cleanups, we're in schools, we're in businesses, we're chatting to people face to face. So this has actually been very interesting, relying on hashtags. It was pretty cool, to be honest. And I think it's going to be something that as a charity we do bring forward, and we've learned from it, and they are actually really useful to us in the future. I think it's something we're definitely going to utilize a bit more, I think.
Interesting. So it's like embracing the digital sphere as it is, and
learning from it, definitely taking something from it.
Interesting. Emma, you're nodding along.
No, definitely. I think youth strikers, and like, I think it's been a reasonably easy transition for us because we're based all around the UK and all around the globe. A lot of what we do is digital already, so kind of like our communication networks are kind of pre-made. So it was quite easy to kind of adapt in that sense. But a lot of obviously the action we do is striking on the streets, which we can't do, and that's made it really hard for people kind of to notice us in a sense. Because as young people, it's kind of, we don't have a voice to vote. We don't, like, MPs have no obligation to listen to us. And in a sense, that means it's really hard to kind of get our voices out there. So striking was the only way to do that. So for us to kind of now go and sit down and think, what can we actually do to grab people's attention? Which is why we started the digital strike movement, which is basically where people, like young people, old people, everyone, can post a picture of themselves with like a climate placard. On Instagram, basically just saying like, this is why we need climate action and why we need to tackle the climate crisis at the same time as tackling COVID-19, because it can't wait. Like COP26 has been delayed until next year. It's one of those things that year it can make a really, really big difference. And however much we kind of want to throw in the towel and go, you know what, we've just been facing another crisis, and it's really demotivating, and it's really easy to get burnout. But I think in a sense we're kind of like, but if we don't do something, who is? So it's definitely, I think on a lot of young people, it's been quite a big stress, just because of purely how kind of overwhelming I think it is to be faced with two crises, and just feel truly powerless, because what we do, we can't do what we want to in that sense. So I think we're still adapting, but I think we're trying to support each other through it and kind of do the best we can.
Mm-hmm. And just to reflect like back what you just said about feeling young people haven't had a voice, I don't know about anyone else watching, but like that hit me in my heart somewhere. I'm like, oh, how have we got to this point where young people feel like they don't have a voice, so they have to take to the streets and have to give up their school time to bring attention to something which we already know about? It's kind of a bit ridiculous, but yeah, I feel you. And I think that if there's anything that we can do to support, let us know. But it sounds like you're already figuring it out, because the youth of today are beyond resourceful, and we can definitely kind of swing back into that. Or if there are any other questions, I think we've already answered one of Tiffany's in advance, then please do continue to comment in the chat box. And Lizzie, what about you? You kind of were nodding seriously at what curious, actually.
the way you've talked about COP26, I think obviously it's a massive blow to everyone in activism around the environment. I found specifically for us the rollbacks that have been done in the plastics world. So the bans that were meant to come in force in April being delayed now till October. Lots of plastic lobbyists, plastic associations all over the world using this time as an opportunity to manipulate the political discourse and try and get single-use plastic brought back into sort of mainstream use as a safer consumer alternative, when actually the science doesn't point to that way at all. The virus stays on plastic far longer than it does on soft fabrics, say like tote bags, for example. So that's been a really frustrating part for me, just seeing how you've kind of made all this amazing progress and it's either now rolled back or halted. And then in terms of Plastic Patrol and our cleanups that we have on the ground, I mean, it couldn't have come at a worse time, to be honest. So like the start of spring is our biggest time of year. It's when the weather starts to warm up, so everyone's going out doing their paddleboarding cleanups, and we have this entire programme for the whole summer in place that we've spent from October last year through to now planning, and everything up to now has been cancelled, obviously, and we're just sort of hanging in the balance, like what will happen next. Is it even going to be safe to go back out and do group activities, even if it's allowed, if people have the confidence to go and do it? So it's a really difficult kind of unknown landscape to navigate. I think one of the really positives that has come out of it is it's given us a big opportunity to kind of take a step back, look at other programs that we're working on and invest more into those. For me personally, it's meant spending more time having these kind of discussions, using digital and social media really productively to kind of keep the conversation alive and moving it forward, and just trying to encourage people to keep using the app and technology and involving themselves in citizen science, even though they're in lockdown. So while people are going out and doing their daily walks, downloading the Plastic Patrol app if they feel comfortable doing a litter pick as part of it and still feeling like they're actively contributing to the problem, well, solution.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, in a wider sphere, kind of this political element that's appearing. And Phoebe, you ask a really good question, which I'll get to in just a second. But it definitely feels like, on the one hand, we've got this crisis, which is taking away and also giving an opportunity to us. On the one hand, we've got new channels that we can use, new places that we can reach people, and the information's at our fingers. But then on the other hand, it takes away from our ability to potentially have impact with the way that we've been doing things before. And this sneaky side attack that seems to be coming from the plastic companies, from the aviation industries, when they're using this as an excuse to say, give us a break, we've already lost loads of money, you can't put that green bill through now because we're suffering. And it's kind of working, like you're saying, Lizzie. It's quite depressing. So how do we make sure digital activism makes a political difference? I know this is a completely different question, but like, should we go there? Jessica, what do you reckon?
I actually I really enjoy this question, actually, because I actually have an answer for it, which is kind of an answer. I like questions that I know answers for. So basically, again, from a SAS point of view, we do quite a lot of citizen science, lots of audits, lots of counting and weighing and that kind of thing. We run 2 main beach cleans a year. We do the big spring beach clean, which is obviously at the beginning, which has unfortunately been cancelled. And we also run one in autumn, and these are 2 beach cleans that run every year, but they're mainly based around audits. So we do brand audits, we do location audits, and we track everything that we find on those locations, and it happens for a week all around the country. So we collect absolute tons and tons and tons of specific data. This is then all sent back to head office, written into reports, and put into like analytical status, basically. And then our CEO, Hugo, and a lot of the guys from head office take that into Parliament. And it's a direct link that we have with Parliament, and they take it in, and it kind of starts the ball rolling on lots of discussions. Like previously, some of the discussions that we've had have initiated conversations about getting the straws and cotton buds banned, which is now something that's coming into fruition. Also, we have bottle return schemes are currently being discussed in Parliament. That was helped with a lot of our data. We did a bottle like sizing of bottle audit. I think it was spring last year with the audit for that one. So this is a really like easy, direct way that everybody can be involved in getting a tiny bit political, because that's where it ends up really. So we have one at the moment we're currently doing called Return to Offender. I don't know if anybody's heard of this. This is we initiated this in 2009. This is when we first started it. It used to be an actual litter event where everyone goes out and collects plastic pollution and puts it in envelopes, then sends it back to the brands and says, we found this. What are your plans to stop it, basically, and to reduce the amount that we keep finding in our environment? But unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we can't encourage people to collect plastic pollution, because unfortunately the virus does survive on plastic pollution. Please, people, don't touch it. So what we're doing is that we've taken it digitally. So what we're doing is we have a hashtag at the moment called See It, Snap It, Share It. So people are photographing it, uploading it to any social media platform that they can find, and tagging in the brands. And basically we are inundating big brands. We have 10 brands that we found in our last audit are the biggest offenders. So that's people like PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Cadbury's, really big brands. We're just sending all of these photos back to them and saying, we keep finding this stuff. Like, what are your plans on reducing your amount of packaging or to be a bit more environmentally conscious? And we've had quite a lot of really good replies back, and a lot of really interesting plans that big brands are actually starting to put into place, which is really good. So activism and actually going forward, which is really positive to see, I think.
Amazing. Lizzie or Emma, do you have anything to add to that question around making sure digital activism remains, I guess, in front of the political agenda?
I think it absolutely has to. That's all the work that we do at Plastic Patrol. It's similar, obviously, to Surfers Against Sewage, except we focus a lot more inland on canals, rivers, and we do a lot of cleanups in parks and streets or whatever. And it's all activity based. We do it's all free, parkour, paddleboarding, yoga. So we're combining like the well-being element with the actual cleanup element. And the reason the app exists, so every time somebody does a cleanup, at the end of the session, they tip out what they find, they photograph it and they log it by brand, type, amount, and the location is automatically geotagged. So we've got this huge repository of data in real time from people all over the world contributing to what the problem looks like. That allows us to go back, like you've said, to government and have these really important discussions about what this problem really looks like, and support things like the bottle deposit system, like the extended producer responsibility reform, that needs really a lot of conversation around. I know I talk specifically about plastic because that is like my passion area, but a lot of the conversation around the circular economy ends up bin. It doesn't end with litter. And what we're trying to do is make people think about litter as part of that circular economy. Like, that material that we find in nature still has value and still needs to be put back into this circular model. And at the moment, no one's really thinking about that. So the work we're doing at Plastic Patrol is trying to basically get government and industry to broaden what the circular economy looks like, so that it encompasses litter as part of it. That is measured and tracked, and manufacturers are held to account and made to pay for the litter that we find.
Very true. Emma?
So within the kind of youth strike movement as a whole, we're working on a piece of legislation called the Build Back Better Bill, or like the Just Recovery Bill. Say it fast over. So yeah, it's like a legislation that aims like a just recovery post-COVID, because our point is the fact that there is no point tackling one crisis just to be left with another. But in retrospect, kind of the what we've seen so far is sort of air pollution levels dropped. Kind of we've set off on a good path, and the fact is that at the moment governments are aiming to return back to normal, and normal was never safe and it was never sustainable, and that isn't what people need. So the aim of the Just Recovery Bill, the short version, is to kind of to make sure that the government go about post-COVID and recovery in a more environmentally friendly way than they set out before. So kind of we're hoping the work we're doing at the moment is pushing that and supporting kind of like Green New Deal UK in there. They're going to release that in a few weeks and things. So yeah, we're kind of hoping that we see this as an opportunity for people to relearn. I know that things that I didn't value before, like going to a restaurant, is kind of thing that you took for granted, whereas now it's like, oh my god, I can't wait to go out with my friends. And things like novel experiences, you know, I value them a lot more. And we're kind of, young people are viewing this as a chance to re-educate people and to change people's values. And we really hope that we can kind of utilize this to change the public's opinions and kind of get people to rethink what they're doing and people's attitudes towards the climate crisis.
Amazing. This is all such good stuff. I'm so glad we're recording this. My head is like bursting with questions. As I'm sure anyone else's are, do drop them into the chat box. That was a great question, Phoebe. We will dive a little bit further into that in just a second. But we do have Rebel Book Club starting in a minute. So if you are interested in updating your library with climate reads, do go over there for some gin and chats about books. But moving forward on this conversation, we have seen that there's obviously some hurdles to overcome. We know that we have to take this debate to the political level, and we know we have to win. We've been banging on their doors. This crisis has only just illustrated how ineffective their policies have been to date, truly, abysmally, in fact. What can we do to speed things up during this time when everyone and everything is slowing down? Like, how can we win? How can we use this to get what we need? That's a huge question, I know, and I have surprised all of you with that because, yes, that's kind of the question that was in the forefront of my mind, because, yeah, I just feel like we've been talking to the government for a long time. They've got the facts, they've got the messages. You know, what is it going to take for them to really start moving?
Wow. I think what this situation, this pandemic, has shown us is that the government can act with urgency and they can make radical decisions when it visibly impacts human health and the economy. And I think if we can find a way to really clearly show how the economy can be improved through greener alternatives, through the work that Emma's doing, and also how it actually is continuing to have a detrimental impact on human health, but also communicate that to make, like, the mainstream as well. Like, this has to be something that's part of just normal discourse now, like the real problems that we're facing and like the potential for, you know, a better, greener economy that can make money and still be good for the planet. I think that's the place that we need to get to. But I think for me, the major thing that I've learned in this period is actually that the government has no excuse now not to act, because they've acted so quickly on COVID. So with the climate and discussions around that, we just have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep having conversations like this and moving it forward. I don't think it's going to be immediate, to be really honest. I think it's an excuse at the moment not to have to tackle what
themselves. It can be very complicated with legislations and getting things through Parliament, but I think they've just themselves wrong, that they can act and they can do it quickly and they can do it all with, like, together. We can act as one, and that's kind of one of the only ways that we're gonna fix what we've done. Basically involved, and the consumer gets involved and the manufacturers get involved and the politicians get involved. Like, we can do it, we can. And I don't think it's been a really hard and really tricky time, but I think it has cleared the air quite a lot when it comes to stuff like the environment. Like the oceans themselves have bounced back. Like, they've got, I think just yesterday they saw bioluminescence in California, which hasn't really ever been seen. There's huge big changes happening that are because basically nobody's driving their cars and nobody's flying anywhere. Like, you can see the Himalayas from India for the first time in like recorded history because the air quality is so much better now. And I think we've basically just proved that we can do it. We can, and we just, again, like Lizzie said, we just need to keep the pressure on as best we can and use our numbers. Like, there's a lot of us out there all singing from the same hymn sheet. We all just need to somehow find a great way of doing it from our own houses at the moment.
I think as well, with them talking, like government talking a lot about following the science as part of this pandemic, we have to follow the science. This is really important. All that does is create a really great situation now to remind them that they really must follow that same science for the climate too. So like you said, they've kind of proven that they can listen to science and they can act quickly, they can do anything.
Yeah.
So while right now we probably aren't going to get what we want because of the situation, it does give us loads of power at some point to make them out.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
But I do, like, adding on to that, if earlier, obviously, we had the flooding and the forest fires around the world earlier this year, which has been completely overshadowed by COVID, and it seems like such a minuscule problem in comparison. But the fact is that if coronavirus had hit 3 months earlier, we would have been dealing with kind of global climate disasters at the same time as a global pandemic, and people aren't putting that together in a sense that that could have been catastrophic. And I think, in a sense, if it isn't happening, people don't take it into account. But we need to make the government realise that, look, it's what we had, probably one of the driest Aprils we'd known in a long time. We'd had very little rain. The fact is that kind of we're beginning to see the effects of the climate crisis, and kind of the government can ignore it for however long they want, but it's only going to get worse. And I think coronavirus is a perfect example of that. At first, obviously, they didn't go about it as well as they could have, and they're kind of dealing with the repercussions of that. And in a sense, I think for climate activists around the world and climate campaigners, this is a perfect example of kind of what the government can do if they want to do it. And I think in the future it will definitely be used as an example of kind of like, well, obviously you're choosing not to do something because it is within your power to do it.
Yeah, I feel like this is a moment where the line has been drawn in the sand, where we say, okay, we know you can act. We know you're guilty of, encouraging a lot of this damage knowingly. If you now step beyond this line, you are putting all of us in danger. And I, for one, would vote for a government that can walk and chew gum, so to speak. So to be able to attend to 2 crises at once. Otherwise, we are headed towards a lot of trouble, because even with climate warming, the impact on, the way that animals interact with humans and humans interact with animals are closer together. There's the likelihood of having another zoo, a disease pass through the populations is quite likely. So it sounds like there's almost this sense of unity that needs to occur, because we've seen the power of collective action. We know what the pressure on government can look like. We know they can act. What do you think is next then? Will there be a Surfers Against Sewage, Plastic Patrol, Climate Youth, mega, I don't know, monsters something or other? What can we do as an individual and as a collective? Is there anything out there right now that's inspiring you, or anything that you think, you're excited about moving forward? That's also another question. That was, I think, as well. So have a moment to think about that.
Yeah, it's a big question. Oh my gosh, yeah. I think the next decade or so is going to be really big for everybody. And if we do a collaboration between all environmentalists, that would be so good. But I think as well, a lot of people have their own overlapping agendas. So we work quite a lot with water quality in bathing areas, and with that kind of stuff, with farming runoffs and everything, as well as plastics. I'm mainly to do with plastics and stuff in London, because we have an excessive amount of rivers and the Thames, which is a whole different story in itself. Yeah, I mean, just for us guys, we have 4 main points that we are heading towards. So we have to stop all single-use plastics on UK beaches by 2030.
Wow.
To stop, which is a big one. It's a big bite to take that, but it's what they're doing.
All single-use plastic on beaches.
All single-use plastic on beaches, which is it's a big one, but we're going for it. I thought, that's what they're doing. So we're doing that one. We want to be net zero by 2030 as well, which is also another huge one. We want 30% of oceans and UK waters to be protected as well, is what we're also working towards. A lot of protection of marine environments, because a lot of people don't realize we do have coral reefs and stuff with lots of seahorses and stuff around the UK, which are desperately needed to be protected.
How much?
And then
now, sorry, Jessica.
It's not off the top of my head. I think it's It's not very much. I think it's under 10%.
Because I wouldn't have known that any of it was, to be honest with you. Or that we had seahorses. That's new to me. That's embarrassing, but it's new.
I know, off the top of my head, I think Falmouth Harbour is slightly protected because of some coral, because they wanted to dredge it at some point. And yeah, so there's lots of little bits and bobs, but I think they're trying to get 30%, which is quite a big chunk as well, which is great. And the last one we're doing is to end sewage discharges into bathing areas by 2030. So we've got some big goals, and everything we do tends to be heading towards one of those goals. So we have plastic-free communities, we have working with schools, we have working with individual businesses. We do our own beach cleans, we do our own audits, and everything we do basically is working really, really hard to get towards that main goal. And we are mostly volunteer run as well. So we rely quite heavily on the communities themselves to help us. And we've had really good positive feedback, and lots of people, like I'm a volunteer myself. Yeah, we've got some big goals ourselves, and we do get involved. We do quite a lot of collaborations. Some of our beach cleans, we have actually entered a lot of data into Plastic Patrol and stuff like that. I've had lots of people with their apps out, which has been really good. It's been really, really good. Lots of people loving the new technology and stuff, especially younger generations who are all, you know, the parents pick the litter and the kids are putting it in. It becomes a bit of a family event as well. So it's really good to get collaborations like that involved, which is really, really great.
There's so much to look forward to there. My goodness, I've got goosebumps listening to it. I hope it goes well, and we'll talk about at the end just how people can kind of get involved with everything that you're doing. But yeah. Lizzie, Emma, what are you guys working on / looking forward to?
Yeah, so last year we did the biggest strike we've ever done in September, which was the general strike for climate, and that basically involved like everyone in society. So we did lots of, it kind of worked for when I finished school in July all the way up until the end of the summer holidays in September. So it was pretty much just like full out planning, and we kind of reached out to unions, community groups, kind of ethnic minorities, kind of try and get representation from everyone in climate activism, because it can often be seen as like a very white middle class strike that the youth strike movement can. So we tried to get as many people involved as possible to make it as inclusive as possible. So that, in a sense, is kind of like, that was our like pinnacle of climate action, and we were hoping to do another one this year. Obviously, coronavirus has completely derailed that. So at the moment, we're working with kind of climate activists all around the world as part of the Fridays for Future network to do a 7-week campaign called Defend the Defenders, which is all about kind of protecting Indigenous activists from the 7 continents around the world. So kind of in 2 weeks we're starting, and then every week we'll focus on a different continent and kind of land right activists and Indigenous groups there that we can help to raise awareness around and protect. Because a lot of the time kind of we see on the mainstream media about Australia and about the UK, but kind of the flooding in Indonesia, which happened just 2 weeks before coronavirus hit, and people had no houses to go to, and that was never covered on the mainstream media. So we're kind of trying to work at this time when everybody's kind of glued to the phones or laptops to try and stay engaged, to kind of bring stories like that to people's kind of forefront, and to make people realise that actually kind of this is drastically affecting people's lives, and to kind of, I think, in a sense, people are in a big shift in mindset while they're in quarantine. It's making people think, and we want to help educate people kind of while they're doing that thinking, to try and make sure that obviously they kind of come out with maybe a newfound sense of appreciation and a newfound sense of action.
Wow. That's amazing. Such amazing things going on. I feel so inspired. Surfers Against Sewage, such big lofty goals. Emma, it sounds like there's so much global community coming forward. And Lizzie, try and top that. Go on.
I'm not even genuinely, what's the point? I give up. Yeah, I just on that, I do think that's really amazing, and I think it's like so important to be supporting the most vulnerable people out there and giving them a voice. I think the fact that you're able to do that through your channel is just incredible. So that's off. Yeah, I'm just going to underwhelm you now and tell you what we're working on. And I won't bore you with the details too much, but effectively it's a tracking system that allows us to, when people are tracking litter, we can hold brands more to account and link that in with the extended producer responsibility reform, so that they are taxed based on the litter that they're producing, and that is scientifically and robustly measured through real-time technology that is governed by the general public. So that it's all very techy and probably a bit out of my depth as well, because I'm not tech-minded, but it's really exciting, and it was taking a lot of time to sort of develop and get to where it is now, but we're really excited about the future, because effectively what we want to try and do is eradicate single-use litter, not even just plastic, single-use materials from nature, and keep them in the economy. Like, single-use as a term, I hope by 2030 just doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, that's our plans, and I think we have to freestyle for a minute, because
I think so. I actually have a question about that, Lizzie.
Yeah,
sorry, I made my own question, and we've also lost our host. So with that, so are you doing this through? Is it all through your app where people would be able to, or is it just kind of your side with Plastic Patrol?
It's all through the app, so it will all be integrated into the app as like barcode scanning technology. So you can effectively scan the barcode and we get all of that really great information about litter and rubbish, reported back to brands, reported back to government, and it's all measured through blockchain, so it can't be interfered with, it can't be tampered with. Like, it's all very strict.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. We held the fort for you, Mel.
We got you back.
Amazing.
Oh no, we lost it again.
I have no idea what has happened. I think I got kicked off my own event somehow. I'm not sure what's going on there. If it happens again, I'm sorry. I'll just keep jumping back. But it's quite a lot of that, unfortunately. The last thing, if there's anyone else that's got a final question, we might have time to squeeze one more in. I just wanted to, where can people find you? What can we do, to help these movements, because they sound, very inspiring and something that we'd like to get. So what's the plan? Lizzie?
Shall I go?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I'll go. So you can find me on Instagram. It's Lizzie_outside, and also on my website, which is lizzieoutside.co.uk. And then you can find more about Plastic Patrol on Instagram at plastic_patrol, and then on the Plastic Patrol website, which is plasticpatrol.co.uk. And hopefully, depending on what happens over the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to announce some paddleboarding, yoga, parkour cleanups over the summer. Yeah, so if anyone's around, we do them all over the UK. So if anyone's around, obviously we'd love to have you along to get involved.
Oh my God, I'm totally going to be there.
Yes.
Bye guys.
Dreaming of being let out. There's going to be no litter to pick, surely? I don't know.
Oh, do you know, I think there will. I live quite close to them now, and it's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible here as well. I live really close to Hackney Marshes, and it's pretty spectacular at the moment. I'm quite shocked by it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I live by the River Irwell, and it's the same here. I think because normally we do like community litter picks once a week. So at the moment, obviously, because people are very aware not to pick anything up, it's mounting up a lot quicker. So over the summer, there'll be a lot to do.
Maybe we should just do a collaboration once we're all let out, and we should just all three just smash it and just clean up. Be amazing. Okay, Surfers Against Sewage. Head to their website. It's sas.org.uk. They have everything up there. They also have Twitter and Instagram. It's all kind of connected. So if you want to help with them, that's really cool. If you want to get involved with our Return to Offender as well, there's no need to sign up. There's no need to call or text or anything. Just start taking pictures of stuff, tag in the offenders and tag in Surfers Against Sewage so they can kind of keep track of replies and stuff like that. Just get involved wherever you want. We also have London social as well. So if you look up Surfers Against Sewage London, that's specifically for the city. Just tag everybody involved, basically. Just get as many numbers as we can behind this movement and get as many voices singing, basically.
So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Emma_YMP. But as well, if you check out the UK Student Climate Network website, we've got things on there about our demands, actions that we're doing, how young people and adults can support us. But yeah, you'll probably see us on social media at some point, but there's so many ways that adults can help. And they're obviously developing as lockdown eases, so keep an eye out.
Amazing.
So good, so good. And if you ladies would be up for dropping your Instagrams, your websites in the chat there, so anybody who's just been watching us can follow you and engage with you, that would be amazing. But again, a huge thank you on behalf of myself and everybody here. That was so insightful, and honestly, I could go on for hours, but I won't, because it's Thursday evening and there's shopping and all sorts of other things to be doing. So thank you for giving up your evening to talk to us about what you're doing. It's absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure we'll do it. We have to. So I'm behind you. And yeah, if you've got any other passing comments or any advice you'd like to give before we sign off.
I feel like I should come up with some words of wisdom. We can do it, guys. Come on, let's stick together. We can do it.
Impactivism. That's it. Use #Impactivism everywhere. You heard it here first. We've created a new revolution, a new movement, combining all forces of good across the universe. I think that's kind of what I like that. So, well, thank you again, Jessica, representative for Surfers Against Sewage. Thanks again, Emma. Basically the future Prime Minister, I think, and literally is, why not? Let's go there. Anyway, if you would like to speak with any of these ladies a little bit more in person, we do have booths open for the panelists for the next sort of 20 minutes or so, or however long they have available to us. So if you'd like to go and speak to them one-on-one, just catch up, send your thoughts and reflections on what they've said, then you're welcome to head over into the sessions by clicking on sessions on the left-hand side and going and saying hello to them there. But thanks again, Jess, Emma, and Lizzie, fantastic. And I'm very grateful for your time and your work.
Thank you.
Well, you can head off backstage and wind your way down the spiral staircase to the sessions area, and we will see you there.
Thanks, bye.